Hi, everyone. It's Rebecca Imholz of the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to Mondays with the Mayor. I hope everyone had a great weekend. And I want to welcome now Shane Griffin, President of the Mount Pleasant Chamber of Commerce. Hello, Shane.
Hey, Rebecca. Sorry, my video button wasn't firing there. So for some folks watching, it's probably a good thing that I'm not on camera. So nonetheless, please say hello to John Inholtz. John Inholtz behind you there. Tell John I said hello.
He's waving.
Rebecca, thanks for all you're doing to help us put on Monday with the Mayor and all the other webinars and events that we have coming up. We've got a lot of exciting things happening in the near future, the expo being one of them, a virtual expo. Be on the lookout for my president's letter in the newsletter coming out this week. So we've got the virtual expo. We've got Representative Cunningham at our monthly luncheon coming up this Thursday. So lots of great stuff. COVID's not going to keep us down. We're going to keep pushing forward and continuing to provide great value and great content to our members. So again, Rebecca, thank you. At this time, welcome on the Honorable Will Haynie, Mayor of Mount Pleasant, and also Lauren Sims. Good afternoon, you two. Good to see you.
Hey.
I suspect everybody had a good weekend and both are still healthy, which is good, right?
Yeah. Doing well, thank you.
That's great news. Well, again, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate the time that both of you take for Monday with the Mayor each and every Monday. I know our members really appreciate it. It gives us some insight to what's happening within the town in regards not only to COVID-19, but also a lot of other topics, and we'll talk about those today. Before we get to all that, though, Mr. Mayor, I understand you have some updates on the COVID numbers and how things are looking.
Yeah, I did not get the daily numbers to bring in today, but I have some trend information from last week in our one region committee. We do have a 2-week downward trend in the region, which is really good. Also, the numbers, and I'm at a macro scale, I'm not just talking about our Mount Pleasant zip codes. The numbers regarding hospitalizations are down, and so the hospitals are feeling better as much as you can in this uncertain world that we're in. So all the numbers are trending in the right directions right now, and this is what we wanted. This is what we needed right at the start of the school year. So I don't know what decisions those who make school decisions will make based on that, but I just want to thank the people of Mount Pleasant for responding well, wearing masks and washing hands and social distancing. And I shared my little vignette last week. I won't do it again, but my barber did tell me that even though the mask ordinance didn't apply to barbershops, business doubled the day after the mask ordinance went into effect. That's the point. We're looking after, if we're saving lives, that's number one. We're saving and improving livelihoods now. So those numbers look good right now.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. You and I were speaking prior today, and you had been riding around Mount Pleasant, and you saw some concerning sites in regards to retail. And, we're seeing some vacancies and some folks that are not open or closed, either for good or for short term, whatever the case may be. But, this by no means is over, not going to be over for a while. But I do think the mask ordinance and us wearing masks gives us more confidence to go out and do the things that we were doing previous. But I know you did see some concerning stuff over the weekend in regards to retail.
Yeah, and we all know that retail was undergoing a transition anyway before COVID hit. And then COVID hit and everybody was mostly buying online. As I started reading in the last few weeks and months about some chain restaurants going dark, Cracker Barrel, which I love, but which also about 10 years ago, after I had gone through a feverish effort to get in shape and lose 25 pounds, and then Cracker Barrel opened up. I lived in Snee Farm at the time, and I gained 7 pounds within the first month that it reopened. It was those biscuits and gravy and the apple pie. But I love you, and we're gonna miss you. But, there's that sitting there dark. And then Carrabba's went dark. And then I went up to shops at Oakland, or some people go, what do you mean shops at Walmart, Super? Oh yeah, Super Walmart. We kind of navigate by that. there's some vacant retail there. And then you come way down on Ben Sawyer and still at Oyster Park there with the apartments above, there is a lot of vacant retail down there, and then some vacant things like the zoo, which is maybe not our biggest business indicator in town, but more and more you see some vacancies popping up. And so I'm not trying to play economist or whatever, but all of these things, one, we worry about people's jobs and livelihoods, and two, we wonder what it portends for our economy as a whole and the tax revenues of the town, because that's how we keep funding the things that you want us to do. I know Lauren has some hotel occupancy rates and things like that. And I've heard anecdotally from a few restaurant owners that after a big June, things took a dive in July because numbers were spiking. And the takeaway from all this, I would like for everybody trying to bring this back, a chamber Zoomcast, for which I'm very thankful, Shane and the other officers. But if people feel safe, they will come do business. If they don't feel safe, they will stay home.
Oh, absolutely. And I know I've told this story a number of times. I was visiting my in-laws up in the upstate, and we went to a pizza facility and walked in and turned around and walked right out because they were acting like nothing. It was normal. And I just was not comfortable with that and have not gone back since. So to your point, Mr. Mayor, if your facility, whether it be a restaurant or a retail or whatever the case may be, is following the guidelines and doing the things that you should be doing, we as consumers are more apt to go, you know what, I feel safe. I had my mask. Their folks have their masks. We're social distancing, doing the things we should do, and more apt to come back and to solicit that business. So hopefully, folks on the call today will really take that to heart and continue to do the things that they should be doing to get through this. At this time, I wanted to bring in Lauren on that note. I know, Lauren, you're getting some questions about the governor's order and how it pertains to other businesses besides restaurants. There are businesses that are putting masks requirements in place that may not even need to, but they feel like they should. It's the right thing to do. So what are you hearing from businesses?
Correct. So we've received kind of a flurry of questions this past week from folks that work in businesses that are non-restaurants. And they are essentially asking for the same kind of coverage that the governor's order provides restaurants, and requiring employees and patrons to wear masks to enter into the facility. And really this where it applies is office spaces that have shared common areas. We're seeing co-working spaces that are becoming more and more common, and folks are realizing how much they interact with each other on a day-to-day basis, and particularly as we are seeing some parents of school-age children that are coming back into the office around this time of the year. A lot of them are rightfully concerned about these common areas. And so they were asking for clarification as to whether or not the governor's order applied to other businesses besides just restaurants. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The governor's order is specific to restaurants or places where food is being served and consumed on premise. The other question that we had received is about food trucks, because those have become increasingly more popular since the pandemic began. And so we're seeing those pop up all around town. I know my neighborhood has them on a weekly basis. And so folks were asking, hey, does a food truck have to abide by these same rules? The answer is it's not actually specifically called out in the governor's ordinance that food trucks have to abide by it. I think it's certainly good practice. I think you could reasonably assume that they should. However, it's not specifically called out in the governor's ordinance. And I guess food trucks have some other things in play with, how many people approach the truck at one given time. They're not necessarily eating on premise, which the ordinance does specify consumption on premise. So you've got some other things kind of coming into play with the food truck scenario, but we're certainly asking anybody who owns a food truck to please abide by every safety precaution that you can, and just continue to do your part, just like every other business, to help slow the spread and hopefully get it out of here sooner rather than later.
Well, I think too, it goes back to something that we've talked about a lot on this Zoomcast, and Mr. Mayor, you've talked about it too. It's more about protecting other people. You obviously want to keep yourself from getting sick, but I know for me, for example, I was having some car trouble and got to a point where I just couldn't do anymore. I called my dad over to my house, and he and I got under the hood and worked on my truck for about an hour, and we both had our masks on.
Wow.
I'm more concerned about, if I don't have symptoms that, I'm giving this to my 70-year-old father, my 69-year-old mother. So for me, it's more about thinking about other people than myself, because certainly do not want to be responsible for something like that. But Mr. Mayor, we've talked about that before, where think about this not in a selfish way, but about making sure that, you're not spreading this to other people. And I think if we all can think that way, then we might be able to get through this a little bit faster. And then obviously too, feel better about what we're doing.
I agree, and I keep bringing this back, and I've been on this since March when all this was dropped in our lap and we had to start dealing with it. But let's remember, the enemy in this is the virus and what it can do to us and our businesses. The enemy is not each other and how we feel about masks or businesses having been closed or anything. And I was speaking to a community group yesterday, and I said, I do not see any business shutdowns in the future. None. I do not see that coming from the town or the county or the state. But if you have a business that their staff or whatever, I mean, how many restaurants have we seen that had to shut down? Some of the most famous ones in Mount Pleasant, most well-known ones, had to do that. One is for the protection of their customers and patrons, and two, sometimes you got too many staff that are having to quarantine to have anybody to work, and we don't want that. So it's only wearing a mask only when you're around other people. Remember, you don't have to wear one when you're driving in your car by yourself. You don't have to wear one when you're walking down the street. Only when you're in an area around other people, and we can stop this thing and we can get out of this thing sooner rather than later. And that's been my goal from the start, right? Whether I've been right or wrong on a lot of things, that's been my goal from the start.
Well, and too, being a part of the Zoomcast, obviously, we are very appreciative to you, Mr. Mayor, and also to Lauren, giving your time each and every Monday and doing this as a service to our chamber members to keep them up to date on what's happening in the town. So we've covered COVID. I'd like to move on now to some things that were accomplished at the council meeting. You had the first reading of the comp plan, and then obviously the building heights. Could you walk us through that a little bit and talk about what was agreed on and what was talked about?
Sure. The comprehensive plan has been out there for a long time. We have to do it every 10 years. We appointed a citizens group that gave us the rough draft. Then it went through the planning commission, which is appointed volunteers. And then it came to us, the elected officials. What I will say is a good thing, and it didn't even occur to me till I was thinking about this after the meeting. You remember the days when, and I'm sure Lauren remembers them, when anytime Mount Pleasant was dealing with buildings and building heights and densities and all that, the place was packed and there were lots of people talking and there was dissension and there was divisiveness about the town. We have not seen any of that on this. It doesn't mean there's been groupthink or anything, but when we had first reading the other night of the comp plan and a public hearing required by law, we might have had 2 people speak. So if we weren't getting this right, if we weren't all at a point where basically we're agreeing on the vision for our town and what it will be like, which is a nice suburban town, hopefully with a growing business environment, but with a slower population environment, I think you would have heard a lot of angry voices and a lot more finger pointing, and it passed unanimously. There were no objections to it. One of the big changes was when the draft came, it had a thing called hubs in it. And the best way I can describe a hub would be something like the Boulevard with high density, a lot of residential, retail on the bottom, mixed use that might bring a lot of cars and rely on public transit. And after listening to the people and some of our own things and 3 election cycles on the debate of the future of Mount Pleasant, what we decided was we know there will be areas that are going to be redeveloped. Think about what will always, for my lifetime, be the old Kmart shopping center, right? Bowman Place. It is much better now than it was when it was an empty Kmart. But it is still a retail place in nature. We didn't cram it full of condos or apartments and those type things. So it brings more jobs, it brings more revenues, and it cuts down, hopefully cuts down on traffic. So we took the hubs concept out and we made them redevelopment areas because we got to have some vision that they're going to change. They can get better, but we don't want them to get better at the expense of everybody's quality of life with more crowded schools and more crowded roads. We think we struck a balance. We're not perfect people. We think we got a good balance on that. And then going with that was a heights ordinance. there was basic agreement that 80-foot buildings around areas of Mount Pleasant, that's as tall as, think of the parking garage when you come over the Cooper River Bridge, the Ravenel Bridge. A lot of people don't like things that tall. And so what we did was we lowered those, and basically what was going to be 80 feet would now be 65 feet, but it would also be 65 with the wedding cake design. So you get 2 or 3 stories at this level, and then for every foot up, you go 2 feet back. So I think we're going to have a nice skyline in Mount Pleasant, hopefully some rooftop gardens, you know, and some bars and restaurants up there. And then we also did the measurement to the eaves instead of to the peak, and that'll leave room not for usable space, but for nice roof designs, because I just get tired of the flat roofs. So that passed, I believe, unanimously. I don't want to speak, Lauren, you may remember. I can't remember if there was any no vote, but it was overwhelmingly passed. And even some of the property owners that at first were very upset about maybe losing some feet came back and advocated for that. So I was real happy. I hate to say it's a new day in Mount Pleasant, but I've been on council since 2015 and going back to the Shim Creek parking garage days. And I just say the whole tenor has changed an awful lot, and it's good in a good way for our town.
Excellent. Well, thank you, sir, for the update. I understand you have a heart out today, so that's all I've got today. Do you have any closing comments for the members today, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, one quick one. By law, since our mask ordinance is a emergency ordinance, it has an automatic 61-day expiration, which is at the end of August. So we will have a meeting. That does not get us to our September council meeting. So we will have a meeting, and right now I know the votes are there to renew at least what we have. But I have heard from some of the council members who opposed initially expanding it to all retail are now hearing from people in retail asking us to make it effective for all retail, not in your office and that type thing. But this is the same thing like Lauren and I were saying a little earlier, that the South Carolina Restaurant Association went to the governor and said, we would like for you to make it mandatory in bars and restaurants because it helps us and helps us stay open. So I don't speak for all of council, but I think a movement is there to expand it a little bit. Businesses, that old thing from the barbershop, right? The appearance that it's safer to go out, hopefully business will go up, and hopefully businesses won't be closing because of the virus.
Well, Mr. Mayor, Lauren, thank you both very much for your time. For those that are watching today, we thank you for taking the time to join us on Monday with the Mayor. We do this each and every Monday at 3:30, where Mayor Haynie and Lauren Sims will join me, and we talk about COVID, we talk about council, all kinds of things that are happening within the town of Mount Pleasant to keep you informed on what's happening. So we're grateful to both Mr. Mayor and Lauren for the time today. And as I always like to say, be safe, stay healthy, and keep moving forward. We'll see you back here next week. See you.
Bye.